In this video, I'm going to take every single MMA prospect that is a fan favorite right now, or is on their way to winning a belt. I'm going to put them into a tier list from future champion to LOL, meaning, yeah, bro's never going to become a champion, journeyman for life at best. But before we begin, please consider a like, comment, subscribe, helps me in the algorithm. With that out of the way, let's get started, guys. Now, the first guy that I'm going to be naming here is going to be Ian Garry. Now, if you don't like Ian Garry, I 100% understand you. I actually made another tier list going over who is the most soy UFC fighter. Ian Garry won that, no diff. But from a fighting standpoint, he is unbelievably talented. However, to play devil's advocate, he is fighting at welterweight, and welterweight has another contender, another prospect that I believe will become a future champion. And if you're looking through it right now, I think you know who I'm talking about. So, I like Ian Garry's chances. I think he can beat a Leon Edwards. I think he can beat a Bilal. But do I think he will become a champion? I would say 50-50 is pretty fair, purely because of other people that are on this list, and rumors of them training together and something happening in there. You're going to understand in a second. Next up is Bo Nickel. Now, I understand why people dislike Bo Nickel. I watched the JRE episode of him too, and Bo Nickel is Bo Nickel's biggest fan. Okay? There's a lot of reasons why I understand people don't like the guy. However, you can't deny that he is probably the most talented prospect right now if you just took overall. He has phenomenal wrestling, and even if you question the talent of his last fight, it was a short notice fight. There is some legitimate technique behind Bo Nickel, and what a lot of people don't seem to understand is people just assume, oh, Ben Askren Part 2. I believe his mom, was a fairly good boxer, and his dad was a wrestler. So he's grown up in this combat sports family, and I think he's going to do very well, especially at middleweight. The only problem is going to be two fighters later on the list, but I would say it's in between most likely and future champ. Guaranteed. I'm going to say most likely for now. I might put him up in future champ by the end of this video. Next up is Saraputin. Now, this is going to sound harsh. I understand he only has one fight in the UFC, and it was against the dude who didn't even get KO'd by Alex Pereira. So I don't fault him for not being able to finish him. However, this is what I am going to fault him for. He is horrifically one-dimensional fighter. The Abu Dhabi crew was trying so hard to hype him up as the future of the UFC, even Dana had to shut them down. I know he's going to improve. I know he could be good. I know he probably is going to be good in the UFC. However, I'm going to assume he stays at middleweight, and I'm going to assume that he only improves a normal amount. The thing is if you're a one-dimensional striker, it is harder to get good at wrestling than it is to get good at striking. If you're going to be one-dimensional, I would rather you be like Bo Nickel than somebody like Saraputin. I don't think he's to the LOL level, like other fighters on this list, but he is definitely on a nah level. Because he is also horrifically undersized for 180. Go down to 170. There are strikers that you can fight. 180 is not your division, pal. You're not that guy. Next up is Shavkat Rakhmonov, future champion, 100%. I believe he beats Bilal. I believe he beats Leon. I think Shavkat's going to be a problem at 170. And I think 170 is going to be really exciting in 2024 if we get past that Bilal Muhammad matchup. I don't think there's anybody that can beat him right now at their current state. What I mean by could, I mean most likely. Of course, Leon could get it done. But Ian Garry is not beating Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shavkat Rakhmonov does horrible things to Ian Garry. I think he does them like Wonder Boy, frankly. Next up is Aaron Blanchfield. This one's difficult. I'm going to say nah. Now, why do I say nah for? The reason I say that is because you can be an undefeated prospect. I know Aaron isn't, but you can be a crazy good prospect in women's MMA. And this is the problems with women's MMA, by the way, is it's hard to get behind a fighter Because once they get into a title picture and fight somebody like a Zhang Wei Li, a Valentina Shevchenko, and Amanda Nunes, I know she's not in here, but for the sake of story, like, understand. And these other champions at women's MMA, they just get absolutely smoked. Irina Aldana was looking unstoppable, and then she gets absolutely worked in her one title fight opportunity. I'm worried that Erin Blanchfield is going to look good, and then we put her against somebody like an Alexa Grasso or a Valentina Shevchenko, and she just gets absolutely worked. I'm going to say nah, just below 50-50. I'm going to say she has like a 30% chance of becoming champion. Sarah Putin, I would say like a 20% chance, because just go down to 170, dude. It's not that crazy of a cut. Paddy Pimblett. That's why I made this one. Now, this is going to be a hot take. It's not that Paddy is a bad fighter, it's that lightweight is just so much better than him. The problem with Paddy Pimblett is he has a style that there are people in his division that are younger than he is, higher up in the rankings than he is, and are better at his stick than he is. Gamrot is a better grappler than Paddy Pimblett. Sarukian is a better grappler than Paddy Pimblett, and just about everybody in the top 10 is a better striker than Paddy. That's the problem with Paddy Pimblett. Now, if he magically gained 20 pounds and can go to 170, maybe? But I think best case scenario, he's going to be Darren Till Part 2, and it just doesn't go well. I think he gets destroyed by Matt Frevola, Drew Dober, and even a chinned Bobby Green do him dirty. And if we go above that, I don't even think it's that competitive, honestly. Next up is Umar Nurmagomedov. Most likely. Honestly, like, now this might be a hot take, but I think Bo Nickel is a better grappler than Umar, but Umar is a better striker than Bo Nickel. I think the power with Umar Nurmagomedov, because a little bit of a weight bully, just a little bit, not crazy, but bro's obviously cutting a crazy amount of weight to make bantamweight. I don't think he could ever make a fight on short notice, and I don't think he has to. But I like Umar's chances of becoming a champion. The problem is I can see a scenario where he fights Corey Sandhagen, which is the next fight, by the way, and we just throw him up too early, and Corey Sandhagen is able to get a unanimous decision because he's able to outpoint the guy. I think Umar's fighting IQ isn't up there yet. I think he could become a champion, but the only reason I'm going to say no to future champion is I'm worried that with a loss to Corey Sandhagen, we throw him back down the rankings, and then we have Cejudo that could get him. I know Cejudo's getting old. Merab Dvalishvili. Like, I can understand putting him in future champion, but I think Savkat has a better case to be made. Arman Sarukian. Most likely. The biggest thing that Arman has going for him is bro is 26 years old. Like, that's crazy to go as far as Arman has in the time that he has had in the UFC. I lost faith in Arman Sarukian when he lost to Gamrot, but then I find out Gamrot, although he beat Arman, Gamrot has the flukiest win streak in lightweight rankings right now. Arman Sarukian did Beneil so dirty. He beat him better than Charles did, and now there's the whole rumor of Arman Sarukian versus Charles Oliveira, number one contenders match, and I don't know. I think Arman can beat Charles, but I think Charles can beat Arman. I think Arman will become a champion one day, because I don't think Islam's going to fight for a crazy amount of time more. I think at the age of 35, he's done. I think we got a few more years with him, but Arman, we got a solid 10 years of Arman Sarukian. That's crazy, dude. I think Arman Sarukian is going to be, you know what? Nah, future champ. He's just so much younger than everybody else, I think you have to put him there. Mohamed Mokaev. Now, this is going to be, the next two are similar to Arman Sarukian. But here's the thing. Mohamed Mokaev was outstruck by Charles Johnson. And he's in a skilled division. But they are extremely top-heavy. I'm going to say most likely because, again, age-wise, I think he has the time to improve. However, I think he got outstruck by Charles Johnson, dude. I don't know. Like, he arguably could have lost that fight. like, I am a little bit skeptical of Muhammad Mokaev, but he's so young that I kind of have to put it in most likely. However, I can also see a scenario, like somebody else I'm going to talk about on this list. He's going to get chinned, that's going to fuck with him, and then we're just going to see a cascade down the mountain of grace. And speaking of that, Raul Rosas Jr. No. I don't believe Raul Rosas Jr. will become a champion in his career. He's not at the level of Paddy because he is young. I think he is the youngest UFC fighter to be signed into the UFC. And don't get me wrong, he's good. He is a good fighter. I'm not going to trash him a lot. I'm not going to call him a fraud. The problem is when I said Muhammad Mokaev might get chinned, and that might be a downward spiral of his career, Raul Rosas Jr. almost will definitely get chinned in his career because... Now, fact check me if I'm wrong, this might be really bad. He's no longer fighting at bantamweight. He's going up to featherweight, and I knew that was going to happen because when you're fighting as young as Raul Rosas Jr. is, you're almost like guaranteed to go up at least one weight class because you can't cut weight like you used to be at 18, now you're going into your 20s. And I know he's coming off a win and it looked good, but that dude got cut by the UFC. And before that, he lost to Kai Kara France in The Ultimate Fighter. Like, Raul Rosas Jr. is not crazy good. I understand he can improve, but he also has a style. I think he's going to get chinned. And he's going up to featherweight, and I don't even think Raul Rosas Jr. has the power to hang at featherweight. I think bantamweight was his best shot, and I think he's going to get done real dirty at featherweight unless we take it ridiculously slow, which we can do. But have you ever heard Rosas Jr. talk? We don't have brain cells to spare here. So yeah, I'm going to say nah for this one. I think Sara has a better chance at winning a title than Raul Rosas Jr. does. Ilia Topuria. This one's tough. I'm going to say most likely. Why do I say that? Because I know people are going to go into comment, and I'm a huge Volkanovski fan too, but understand that I would say Ilia beating Volkanovski is 50-50 now. But the reason I say most likely is because Ilia will outlast Volkanovski, and Ilia will outlast Holloway. And if I had to do like a top three, like a real top three of this division, it's going to be Volkanovski, Holloway, Ilia. Those are the best people at featherweight right now. Ilia did Josh Emmett so dirty. I mean, like, I believe, wasn't that like one of the few 10-7s ever in the UFC is what Ilia did to him? Ilia destroys Bryce Mitchell, who is another person we're going to talk to, I'm sorry. But Ilia destroyed Bryce Mitchell, Josh Emmett. I think he can beat a Yair Rodriguez because Ilia has underrated jiu-jitsu. I mean, that's something that needs to be talked about as well. He is very well-rounded. He's not just a crazy boxer. And that boxing in the pocket, it's one of the best in featherweight. He is so good at digging for the liver and then coming in with an overhand right. The one time he fought at 155, I know he nearly lost, but Ilia proved he has the power for 155 and fighting at 145. Also, fun fact, did you know Ilia's debut was supposed to be against Petr Yan? Wild. What a weird... That'd be a different timeline if that happened. Khamzat Chimaev. I think Khamzat will become a future champion. I think it's almost guaranteed. Purely because at the time that he's coming up in his division, middleweight used to be a division of really good strikers. That's how you got the Stricklands, that's how you got the Pereiras, that's how you got the Israels. And there was some well-roundedness to like a Dricus du Plessis and a Robert Whittaker. I think Khamzat will become champion. I don't think he reigns for a crazy amount of time because I think we've seen I'm not going to say the final product, but we have an idea of what the final product of Khamzat is. And that is somebody that is extremely dangerous in round one and loses 60% of his steam in round two. And I think a 5-round fight won't be good for him. However, hot take, I know, and this could prove to be wrong, and egg on my face if I'm wrong. I think Khamzat Chimaev can finish Sean Strickland in the first round. I think he submits Israel in the first round. I know that sounds like a casual take, but styles make fights here, and I think Khamzat's able to do it. Honestly, I think Robert Whittaker has a better chance at beating Khamzat than Israel does, just purely based off styles. I know people are going to bring up Yoel Romero. Yoel and Khamzat have way different styles of wrestling. And most people, when they look at that, they're like, Yoel's a wrestler, Khamzat a wrestler. So they're both wrestlers. And Israel beat Yoel, so he'll beat Khamzat. Khamzat has a completely different style of wrestling to Yoel Romero. And I think for that reason, I think he'll become a future champion. Not as good as of a chance as Shavkat Rakhmonov. Slightly better than Arman. Next up is Tatiana Suarez. 50-50, honestly. Like, we need more 50-50s, but at the same time, it's the same problem with women's MMA. You can be an undefeated prospect your entire career. You could look like an absolute beast your entire career, from your amateur career all the way up to your number one contenders match. And then you fight for the title, and then we're like, oh, she has no clue how to fight. Juliana Pena, I will never let people forget this. Juliana Pena was hailed as the next great women's MMA fighter when she submitted Amanda Nunes. And now we're like, oh, Juliana Pena can't strike. She can't. Juliana Pena can't strike, and she became champion against Amanda Nunes. Tatiana Suarez can be undefeated and then lose in her number one contenders match, lose in her championship fight, and then we're like, oh, Suarez can't really fight. So I'm going to say 50-50 because he could also be really good. Jelton Almeida. Nah. I think he has better chance than Patty of becoming a heavyweight champion because heavyweights don't really know how to grapple. Their grappling is just bad. Unless you're Curtis Blades. Unless you're Curtis Blades, Stipe. But even now we don't know what Stipe is, so I'm gonna say 50-50. Unless you're Curtis Blades, Tom Aspinall, or John. John barely counts because he's a light heavyweight. He just moved up. So really, Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blades. Nobody else can grapple. Nobody else. You can maybe say Volkov, but Tom Aspinall destroyed Volkov. I think Jelton Almeida just isn't a good striker, but is good at grappling, and even that I'm 50-50 on because they gave you a short notice Derek Lewis and you couldn't submit the guy. So yeah, nah. You're in the right place. Gamrot. This one's tough. It's either nah or 50-50. I'm going to put 50-50 purely because if you can fluke a 3-fight win streak, you can also fluke a championship win. And he did beat Arman. I know you can argue Arman, and some people say it was a robbery. A win's a win. I'm sorry. And he also beat Jalen Turner, but yeah. I'm just going to say 50-50 purely because he might be able to fluke a split decision against Islam, and that would be kind of hilarious. Rafael Fiziev. Again, that's another 50-50, purely because, Rafael Fiziev won the first round against Gamrot, but Gamrot has a style that I think his chances of winning a title are better than Fiziev, but not as good as Arman. So I would say these are about even. You can put these either or. But since Gamrot beat Fiziev, I kind of have to put Gamrot above him. Next up is Bryce Mitchell. I can't put him in front of Patty, so I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I like Bryce Mitchell. I really do. But at the same time, I'm glad he's all right. Bryce Mitchell is all right after that Josh Emmett terrible KO. But the problem with Bryce Mitchell is, again, styles make fights. He has a style that I don't think lends itself to a champion well. Good grappler, fun personality, good dude. But again, he's not becoming champion off his personality. He gets hit a lot. I'm not going to say he has a bad chin. Josh Emmett has legit power, and Dan Ige has decent power, and Dan Ige was piecing up Bryce Mitchell. But Josh Emmett has good power. I don't know why people are saying Bryce Mitchell doesn't have a chin before the fight, and after the fight, he's like, oh, see, it's proved. No, Josh Emmett just hits really hard. But Bryce Mitchell gets hit a lot. He's not good at protecting himself. I must say, LOL, he's not becoming champion here. Jack Della Maddalena. I would really like to see Jack Della Maddalena fight Ian Gary. You know what? Just because I want to see that fight and I want to stoke the flames of Jack Della Maddalena versus Ian Gary, I'm going to put them right next to each other. Now, I would say 50-50 is pretty fair. I think Savkat still beats him. But at the same time, if I put Ian Gary at the top of really this version of C tier, and I believe Jack Della Maddalena is close to that level. I mean, he was able to beat Kevin Holland, and Kevin Holland is pretty underrated in the striking department. So I'm going to say 50-50 with Ian Gary. Khalil Roundtree. Dude, Khalil Roundtree is scary. If people want to talk about like the scariest fighters in MMA, I think you kind of have to bring up Khalil Roundtree. And I think that's another 50-50. However, that's probably like a 49%. Everybody else is 50%. Purely because I don't know if Khalil Roundtree can beat it on Kalaev. But I'm pretty confident a Khalil Roundtree can beat a Johnny Walker. I think he gets to that title picture. That's tough. I think 50-50%. If there's no Alex Pereira, Ankalaev's your biggest test, and I can see a scenario where Khalil Roundtree is out for blood and just shins Ankalaev. But again, we're talking about 49%. Sean Brady. I'm going to say the top of nah. I think Sean Brady is going to be one of the better journeymen at the end of his career. I think he'll become I don't know about a fan favorite, but I think he'll become a pretty staple of the welterweight division. I don't think he becomes champion. I think at best he becomes an interim champion. I think an interesting fight to make would be like a Sean Brady, Jack Della Maddalena, or a Sean Brady, Ian Gary. These are fights that I want to see. However, I think styles make fights here, and I think these guys have a better chance at beating Savkat than Sean Brady has at beating Savkat. Now, Sean Brady got TKO'd by Bilal Muhammad. Yeah, you can't be at 50-50. You have to go in nah. Ikram Aliskerov. 50-50 above Gamrot. 50-50 above Tatiana Suarez. Not most likely. Definitely a good 50-50, purely because Ikram is coming up a division where, I know I said it's the division of strikers, but the reason why Khamzat's a future champ and why Ikram isn't is purely because Khamzat Chimaev made it there first. And I think he'll be able to become a champion in the time it takes. Middleweight's going to become a division of wrestlers. It will do that. You got Khamzat Chimaev, Bo Nickel, and Ikram Aliskerov. I think because of these three, we are going to gravitate towards either people that are well-rounded and people that are wrestlers. So Ikram Aliskerov is going to be 50-50 because I think by the time he gets up there, I think it's like a 50-50 whether he can beat a Khamzat. But again, let Bo Nickel improve. I think Bo Nickel honestly does beat Khamzat. Just improve his striking slightly. Dricus Du Plessis. I know this one's kind of weird because he is fighting for the title next. So, it's either most likely or 50-50. The reason that I'm going to say the top of 50-50 purely because him versus Sean Strickland is a legitimate pick'em. I don't know who's going to win. People keep asking me to do my prediction. I'm going to do that closer to the event because I want to see more. I want to see how emotional is Strickland getting for this fight. But I think Dricus is a perfect pick'em for Strickland. And I think he can beat a Khamzat. But I think Khamzat Chimaev's just a little bit better at offensive wrestling than Dricus. And I think Khamzat has a style that can beat Sean Strickland. I can see a scenario where Dricus Du Plessis just isn't able to get his timing down. And Strickland's able to walk him down and just win off a unanimous decision or a TKO. That's why I'm saying 50-50, not a most likely or a future champion. Tell me, what do you think about this tier list? I think I did pretty well. I think Savkat, Khamzat Chimaev, and Arman are pretty good choices for future champions. The most likely is the only one that I think you can drag some down if you really wanted to. But I think everything else I got pretty correct. Now, I think that's going to be it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please consider a like, comment, subscribe, and with that out of the way, adios, guys.